This is a WPTV News Channel 5 Town Hall. Priced out of paradise.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jay Cashmere.
And I'm Michael Williams.
Thanks for joining us for WPTV's Town Hall, Priced Out of Paradise. We are joined by concerned citizens from all corners of our community tonight. They'll share their stories of struggles. We also have a distinguished panel from academia, government, and real estate.
Throughout 2022, as you at home well know, we've been shining a light at WPTV on our ever-burgeoning housing crisis in our series, Priced Out of Paradise. And to say the very least, it is a multifaceted crisis.
Certainly is, from housing prices that have become unaffordable to rental prices that are forcing people from their homes to the lack of workforce housing and affordable housing to the new face of homelessness.
And the pain only grows because of the rising cost of other absolute essentials, from childcare for so many of you, gas, groceries. Indeed, many experts say, and many of us agree, it is fraying, perhaps permanently, the financial fabric of our community.
Cash buyers who compete against local residents. Right now, developers in communities like Alton and Jupiter can't build fast enough, driving many locals who are looking north.
I found that I was getting a lot more bang for my buck if I came up in here to Martin County.
Brooks Feeser left a high-priced rental in Jupiter.
It's quiet, it's out of the chaos.
After losing 12 offers on other homes to cash buyers, he closed on this 3-bedroom, 2-bath Hobestown home in February for $430,000.
The sale price of the house is scary. You know, will I get upside down on this? I will work hard to try to make sure that doesn't happen.
The stories are endless from across South Florida, those trying to navigate the housing crisis. We've invited 23 residents of our community here to talk to us about their struggle. We'll hear from them in just a moment, but first, Michael with our panelists.
And to hear your stories, we've assembled a great panel here today. First, State Representative Toby Overdorf from District 83, a Republican covering Martin and parts of St. Lucie County. Christina Pappas, president of the Florida Realtors Group, and we thank you both for being here. And next, Jonathan Brown, who is the longtime head of the Palm Beach County Office of Economic and Housing Development. We appreciate you being here for your expertise. And Professor Ken Johnson, a familiar face on our airwaves, an FAU Economic Department professor who has a real way of bringing home big economic issues in a relatable fashion to us. So we thank you for being with us. Very briefly, for our audience, we'll begin with you, Representative Overdorf. Give us a sense of what possible solutions may be out there as we begin this discussion.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here today, and thank you all for being here as well and being a part of this this discussion. It's a multifaceted solution to what we're going to be looking at, whether it be the government getting involved in additional housing assistance, whether it be additional economic incentives such as bringing new companies, new opportunities for jobs and high-paying jobs in the area, or whether it be insurance reform and other things along those lines we're really looking at getting into over the next couple of months here.
We'll certainly be talking in depth about all of that with you, and I know a lot of your questions to go there. Ms. Pappas.
Well, thank you as well for being here, and thank you to you all for bringing this to light. What is amazing is people like you bringing this to light. I do believe everyone is laser focused on a lot of different solutions. There's a lot of technology companies that have come in that I'll share with you all through seller solutions, buyer solutions, tenant solutions. Everyone is laser focused on how to make sure housing is affordable for all and you all are able to get into homes. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to answering your questions.
And we want to be as solution oriented as we can. Mr. Brown, your perspective.
Again, thank you for having us. There are many things that need to be done, and it will not be accomplished unless there is assistance and help at all levels, our federal level, our state level, and our local levels. And it's not just government. We need to have industry involved, our businesses that are here, our businesses that are looking to relocate here, our development community. Everyone will need to work together to help solve this issue.
We'll talk more specifically to a lot of that. I suspect a lot of your questions will take our panel there. Professor Johnson.
The short answer is we need to build and build more. More roofs to live under and rent, more roofs to live under and own.
And talking affordable roofs and rents, and that'll be a big
correct.
part of our discussion. We'll go in depth with that, but now, Jay, take it away.
Michael, thank you very much. So many topics to get to today. One we want to put on the front burner, though, that's happening this week in Tallahassee, and that's the rising price of property insurance, forcing many of our residents out of their homes when they get that bill, shell-shocked at how high it's gone. Representative Overdorf, we'll start with you, sir. As you navigate with lawmakers this week, what are your initial thoughts on this problem that seems to be out of control?
Well, thank you, Jay. And this absolutely is a major problem we're having throughout the state of Florida. The areas that we will be focusing on, number one is AOB, or assignment of benefits. And this is a practice by which we've seen a tremendous amount of fraud that has happened throughout our state. And it's an area that we will be focused on as far as attorney fees, lowering those attorney fees, putting caps on a variety of things, and that will have an immediate benefit on our insurance rates. Number two, reinsurance. Reinsurance is the practice by which our insurance companies actually have the backing. So we have an opportunity now. We're going to be putting $2 billion into a fund that will be dealing with reinsurance. And then also we're dealing with roofs themselves. This has been a major topic, whether it be a roof is good for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. Personally, I believe that roofs are not built for a 10-year lifespan. They need to be looked at as 20 years, and we're having some ways that we can deal with this, and also having roof inspections, et cetera, that will be hopefully lowering the cost overall of homeowner insurance.
Representative Overdorf, thank you for your time on the matter. We want to get to our first guest, Jeff Dobbins from Boca Raton. Sir, tell us your thoughts on the situation.
Well, my question is to Representative Overdorf, why doesn't Florida return the catastrophe fund attachment point back to $4.5 billion from $8.2 where it is now? This reduction would reduce the cost of the reinsurance that the insurance companies have to buy and reduce the cost of people's premiums.
Well, thank you for that, and I think a couple of different answers to you. First of all, you nailed it on the reinsurance costs. Reinsurance currently is offshore. And this is an area that we have to address right now in order to bring down the catastrophic fund. Number two, we have to deal with the fraud issue in that some of the areas that we're looking at, they've increased the damage associated with an insurance premium, or excuse me, an insurance repair, and now you're looking more at, again, a fraud issue. So I think if we can deal with those two issues very quickly, which looks like we will, we'll be okay.
Any other brief weigh-in from our panel on that? Mr. Brown, Dr. Johnson?
Just when you have rising insurance, you have push and pull inflation. Rising cost of insurance pushes up prices. So that's where we're working on the inflation side, and we're going to see that as long as insurance prices continue to go up.
Our second question comes from this row. Sir, give us your name and where you live.
Matzner.
From what community?
I'm a public adjuster.
All right, and your question?
My question is regarding there are rules or laws on the books regarding roofing companies soliciting neighborhoods to sign them up for roofs, okay? These rules are not being enforced. It's happening right now, it happened last month, and it's going to continue because these rules are just not being enforced, and that's just going to the cost of increasing claims. You know, they go from neighborhood to neighborhood and just keep going. Why aren't the rules being enforced?
Let's first, let's have perhaps you, Mr. Brown, if you want to jump in on that. Then we'll go to our Florida Realtor president, because I know you've dealt with this, and anybody else wants to jump in. Go ahead to the question.
Typically with rules as we see them, as you know, from a local government perspective, as we are made aware of those things, then we can get out and address them. There are a lot of things that are going on that are happening that we find out after the fact.
Can you get out in front of it much quicker to help people like this?
We can advise the community, we can advise the public, and as individuals are reaching out to them, if they can contact us, then we can begin to get in front of it.
I agree, and I think the legislature has tried to address this in several different areas. 2 years ago, they passed a bill, SB 76, that helped address some of the fraud that is occurring. But it's really a lot, what Florida Realtors believes is about education and educating a lot of our homeowners about what it looks like to receive a fraud notice, to receive a offer of new roof for free, and to realize that nothing is free and that how that truly impacts them. So I believe a lot of actual additional education by folks like you and our TV partners can really be a lot of the help here.
Ms. Pappas, thank you very much. Certainly a hot topic when it comes to homeowners insurance, and hopefully we'll find some solutions as lawmakers navigate that. treacherous water this week. We want to switch topics right now to rental prices. So many people, hundreds of thousands of people, have seen increased rent. It's up 30% across our area, and in some cases, in some cities, up 52%. I want to open up our audience right now. How many of you have been impacted by higher rent prices this year alone? Hands high. Sir, I'll start with you. Tell us about your rent situation and where you're from, where do you live, and how much you have been impacted by this.
My name is Matt Constantine. I work with Adopt a Family in the Palm Beaches. I live in Lake Worth Beach, and the work I do with this nonprofit centers on housing for families that are at risk of becoming homeless or experiencing homelessness. So every day, over the last year especially, the spike in calls and the desperation that we hear from our callers talking about $700, $800, $900 increases on a month-to-month lease. And we don't have a place to put them. And it's really becoming challenging for us. And I'm glad this is happening because it's a community effort. But the crisis is here. And if we don't act fast, I don't know what our future looks like.
And what specific question do you have for our panelists?
So we've talked a lot about the issues here in the county. And what I would love to hear, are there 2 or 3 immediate action steps that you would take if you had a crystal ball and could do something that wouldn't require waiting 5 or 10 years for the inventory to increase?
Let's ask about that. First, Ms. Pappas, you raised your hand, then we'll go to
Actually,
Mr. Brown.
yes. There's 2 programs. One is a company called Divvy and another company called Landis. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. Both of them will help renters purchase houses, and then they will pay rent back to Landis or Divvy while they live there, and then they can then purchase it from them. But it's a full program. The renter has to be qualified, but it's a great buyer solution for our tenants who may be able to afford to purchase, but maybe don't have all the means right now, so they would pay that back, and it's an incredible solution.
Professor Johnson, you see something on the horizon there, then Mr. Brown.
I see something we perhaps should not do, and I've heard this a lot in the media, and that is we should consider rent controls, and that would be a monumentally bad idea. It would actually contract the number of units that are being brought to the marketplace. And so I would just go back to my earlier answer, which is we have to build and build as rapidly as we can. We have a supply shortage. We need to increase that supply. It's very difficult to build housing or to convert housing for use rapidly. This is just something we're going to have to deal with for the next several months.
And if you're a landlord, work with your local government, work with your public housing authorities, work with the agencies, the nonprofit agencies that are in place to assist you. There are programs that will assist and help make those rents affordable for our workforce and the residents of Palm Beach County.
One more quick question on rent. Eve Stafford. Eve, why don't you tell us about your struggles? I know you're from North Palm Beach County, right?
Yes, North Palm Beach. My question to the panel is, do you believe there should be some regulation in place for landlords who are continuing to raise rents on tenants while not allowing tenants to enter into more than a month-to-month lease agreement?
Representative Overdorf? Briefly, and then we'll go to break and pick it up on the next side.
So again, I don't really believe the government is the answer for this crisis. We've seen government interject themselves before. You saw it with the rent moratoriums. You saw it where all of a sudden they weren't allowed to collect on rents through quite some time during the pandemic. That ended August of 2021, and you saw an immediate increase in rents. You saw an immediate increase in evictions, and so that was a result of a government programs. That's why I think we need to keep it in the private industry.
And we'll talk more about that on the other side of our break. We'll be back with more of our town hall in just a moment.
And welcome back, everyone. It is a sad reality. More working-class families are being priced out of paradise. Michael Butchner now with the new face of homelessness.
I never expected any of this.
Nobody wants to live like this. Nobody should live like this.
I wake up in pain and I cry it out and I have a smile on my face when I go to work.
It's embarrassing to be in this position.
I'm a MA nurse.
We met this mother.
I've been working and trying to, stay above water.
As she left work.
Right now is a fight for survival.
Her SUV.
It's heartbreaking.
Is her home.
Because I worked all my life. I don't want to be one of those that they open my door. I'm no longer breathing. I don't want to be one of those.
So again, you hear the heartfelt stories here that are ripping people's hearts, souls apart in this community. We've heard it, we've seen the tears, we see the financial pain. We want to continue our discussion on the rent side of this debate. And again, show of hands on the rent question here. People have been talking about that. Give us a show of hands here. I want to go to one of you right now. Why don't we go right here, if we're able to. If you can stay seated. Give us your name. You've got a tough situation you told about before we went here. What's your situation, and who would you like to direct your specific question to?
My name is April Hall.
Speak up just so they can hear you.
My name is April Hall. I'm a single mother of 4. Myself and my children were unexpectedly forced to live out of my vehicle. What can the county, someone, do to help us in this situation?
You are living with your kids out of the car right now?
Yes, I'm living with my children in my vehicle.
Mr. Brown, all of us, it just tears away at our gut to hear that. For somebody who's working so hard and trying to do the right thing, what are some answers?
So the first thing I would say is contact the county. Contact our community services department. Our community services department has a team that is ready, willing, and able to assist families who are either homeless or at the risk of homelessness. And we work to immediately find you some temporary solution to your housing situation as the county works and as our partners work to find a more long-term solution.
And I want to say we're going to put you directly in touch, and he's been gracious enough to say after the broadcast to put you in touch. But the question you're asking, a lot of people are a paycheck or two away from this. So we thank you. We're going to make sure you and everybody at home has more resources to deal with that, and our prayers and blessings to you and your family. But we're going to make sure you talk specifically to him and get some specific, concrete answers. We'll throw it over to Jay now as we have more questions.
And Michael, Representative Overdorf, you had some more on that.
Just wanted to touch base on that. Thank you so much. One other program that you might want to look at also is Place of Hope. And Place of Hope has transitional housing right now, specifically for single mothers associated with their families as well. So another great program we have here throughout the region.
More stories of the rental crisis here in South Florida. Sir, I know you give us your name, where you live, and your problem.
Ezra Krieg, Delray Beach, Florida. I've worked in homelessness for the last 10 years. We've had a housing challenge for much longer than that. We're now in a housing crisis. How did we get there?
Mr. Johnson.
So a couple things happened at the same time that were unexpected. So as the pandemic came upon us, governments decided to shock the economy, provide funding for different people across the economy, and also provide better available credit. And I, for one, and a lot of other housing economists were shocked at how people would buy homes virtually and interest rates lowered, and you saw prices rise very rapidly in homes. Rents in Florida rose very rapidly, primarily because we've had this significant influx. We're growing at a faster rate than ever before, and some people are coming to stay permanently, some are coming to stay temporarily. And we have a little bit of data that suggests we might see a little backup in rents because a lot of the temporary COVID folks will be going back home because they can't work remotely from here and work in New York. But we're not going back to 2020 rents. We're just not going to see that.
We have another question. Please tell us your name, where you're from, and give us your question, please.
My name is Gwendolyn Rogers.
I've got it.
I live in West Palm Beach, Florida. I lived in a West Palm Beach condo that underwent mold remediation. I later received a notice.
If you can just speak up a little bit for our panel. Go ahead. Start.
I lived in West Palm Beach. I lived in a West Palm Beach condo that underwent mold remediation. I later received a notice that my lease would not be renewed at a time when properties were scarce due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I was left with nowhere to go. And my question is for Jonathan and the state representative, what can local leaders do to protect tenants, and can funding be allocated to assist with hotel expenses where I have been living off and on since 2020?
Well, again, we're hearing a lot of people homeless or near homeless. And first to you, Mr. Brown, people are saying, put some teeth in some laws now. We understand we've got long-term problems. What can we do to put teeth in regulations now to at least give people a little break and breathing room?
The county currently does provide hotel assistance. That's one of the first options that's available to those that are homeless or at risk of homelessness. As we assess what your needs are, in order to ensure we provide that first temporary solution, it will include the option for hotel assistance.
There's so many stories of people struggling with rent here in Palm Beach County. As I mentioned, rent prices on the rise, in some cases up 52%. On the whole, it's up 30%. We'll continue our discussion, trying to find some solutions when we come back.
Your WPTV News Channel 5 Town Hall returns after this.
And welcome back to WPTV's Town Hall, priced out of paradise, as we peel away the layers of the housing crisis across South Florida. We are focused on a hot topic right now, rent, and the skyrocketing rent prices that have affected so many people, including our audience members here today. I want to focus our attention to our panelists right now and go back to the source of where this started. So many of our journalists are getting asked out there by renters, how can their landlords raise rent that high, in some cases $1,000? And what's being done right now to find a solution to cap it? Dr. Johnson, we'll start with you. We've had this conversation before, sir.
So this is a matter of supply and demand. So unfortunately for Southeast Florida and many other parts of the country, but in particular here in Southeast Florida, we are in the midst of a population spike that we haven't seen. The county growth in the next 10 years is expected to grow at 12%. Martin and St. Lucie counties are at 17.5% each. So you're having this huge influx, and unfortunately it's coming exactly at a point in time where we are at our lowest inventory levels relative to our population. Those two things have come together at the same time to create this huge run-up in rents. So that's the market response as to why this is happening. Individually, markets drive prices. Landlords try to lease at market. I would say to landlords, though, and I'm a former landlord. I used to own a number of properties when I lived in another state, and I would much rather have a happy tenant at a little lower monthly rent that would take care of my property than an unhappy tenant at a maximum rent that might not take care of my property. So I would appeal to owners of rentals and apartment complexes. You have to think about, what is your tenant mix? We always want a great tenant mix, and perhaps maximizing monthly rents is not the exact way to go about doing that.
Representative Overdorf, I know there's been discussion perhaps in the legislature that there could be caps put on this. What navigation do you have as far as that goes in Tallahassee, and where we could help these residents out so they don't see $1,000 increases overnight?
Well, what we've seen also, I mean, we see 845 individuals that are moving into the state of Florida every single day. Again, you're seeing an increase. You're seeing foreign investment that's coming in and purchasing over almost 10% of the homes throughout our region. We have investment pods that are coming through and buying all this. So the market is really being driven by outside money and folks, because frankly, we've done a great job here in the state of Florida of creating opportunities. People want to move here. Is the government going to step in and have rent control or other things along those lines? I don't see that anticipating. I see the market playing out, and we are going to be getting additional rental units, additional opportunities for rent, and I think that is going to be an area that will, in fact, slow down the rise in rent.
I know none of you mean it this way, but to a person at home who's struggling, they could hear it this way, that's not a lot to be done. What in the most egregious examples, at least, can we do, to Jay's point and to the point of a lot of our audience, the most egregious examples of month-to-month rent where there's these rate hikes that one median study showed 32% up in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties, 21% over the norm long-term lease trend. What can we do there? And Ms. Pappas, then you, Mr. Brown.
I actually was going to speak to what Representative Overholt was speaking to. An immediate assistance and immediate help to people who are willing to build and turn their units into affordable units is really one of the incredible solutions that we need to be looking at. It is what our state has done, and we're looking at, really, we need more units to build, but incentives to turn my units into affordable housing units. And that's where I believe the state can drive some more incentives into our landlords in order to keep their units affordable.
Mr. Brown, I know we'll be talking about that even more, but jump in.
To piggyback, and that is so important. It is so important that our State Housing Initiative Partnership Fund be fully funded. When we talk about the crisis we're in, it's not just happening. We can go back a decade or more and see how our SHIP funds were diverted, SHIP, which are set aside for affordable housing, how they were diverted to other efforts. And so we were not able to assist developers who wanted to provide affordable housing, and thus we weren't able to place restrictions or restricted units in those developments.
We have a member of the audience to ask a question. It sounds like a lot of what I'm hearing is if there's enough grassroots voices to say we need help, that Tallahassee and our local governments listen, and our local private sector. Josh Maddock, you have a question about rent. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I work with Faith, Hope, Love Charity Stand Down, and we work with veterans, homeless or at risk. And these folks are at 50% of area median income. So, I mean, my question is just basically, what are they supposed to do? Because we're seeing this every week where, people are coming in and their rents are going up 40%.
Mr. Brown?
The county has committed to Faith, Hope, Love to work with you on your veteran project. So we're definitely there. I look forward to it, and I know our county commission does as well.
And also, I might add, this year specifically, we also put in the Hometown Heroes program, which dedicated $100 million towards veterans, towards firefighters, nurses, et cetera, and helping them out with assistance, and that is coming directly from the Finance Housing.
And that's a 0% loan offered to our veterans that they purchase a home and get their closing costs covered, so they can move into a home. If they can afford to rent, typically they can afford to buy now.
And if I'm hearing one thing, show of hands, how many of you are unaware of all those various resources that they're talking about? Show your hands when you're like, I've really not heard about that resource before. So I think the job that maybe we can all do in the media here at PTV and all of you individually and collectively is to find a way to make sure people know about resources, because I hear it time and again. I didn't know about that resource. I think that's part of the discussion we can continue both today and later. And we'll continue a lot more in our next half hour on our special town hall as we look at Priced Out of Paradise, its impact on South Floridians. Back in a moment.
This is a WPTV News Channel 5 Town Hall. Priced Out of Paradise.
For many, the American dream meant buying a home. However, that dream is vanishing for many South Floridians.
Out-of-state buyers so often coming in the last couple of years, buying full price, buying in cash, and forcing longtime locals right out of the market. WPTV's Lenny Sapal looks at that troubling trend for many.
Opening the door to possibilities, Ryan Rochford is house hunting in Jupiter. It's been a difficult search to find a home for his family of 4.
The emotional aspect of it, we've learned to be kind of cold about it and not get too attached to anything. Buyers do not have the same leverage. And for that, I guess they would need to let go of their traditional ways.
His family moved from Canada 4 years ago. They recently decided to buy a home in the midst of a fast-moving market.
It's been no surprise, like everybody else. It's quite shocking to see how much the prices have increased.
So he's staying open to several options.
There's many different recipes that can work for us, and a nice condo is one of them.
Fine-tuning his strategy along the way.
We've had to waive financing.
As we mentioned, it was once the American dream. Now it's almost impossible for so many across South Florida trying to buy a home and navigating through the housing crisis here. In Palm Beach Gardens recently, we had a home on the market that had 31 offers, 25 of which were cash buyers. And that's the most important tactic to understand here. It's the cash buyers that are coming in to this market and sweeping up inventory. It leaves many who are searching for a home without the opportunity to even find a listing, let alone afford it. We'll begin with our audience members. Sir, your name, where you're from, and your problem.
Greg McManus. I'm a realtor here in Palm Beach Gardens, actually. And my question really is, what do we need to happen as far as inventory levels, or what needs to change for our local residents to be more open to now listing their homes that want to stay local? I'm noticing that a lot of people are afraid to even list their homes because they're afraid where they're going to go, and they're not wanting to leave the area. They want to stay here. So I'm trying to find, where is the breaking point? This is really directed to you, Ms. Pappas. Where is that breaking point of inventory levels, or what needs to change to open people's minds back up to, hey, I'm ready to upgrade again?
And I hate to keep going back to some of the really amazing tools and companies that have come into our marketplace, but both Knock and Easy Knock are seller solutions that will purchase the home from the owner, let them stay in it while they find their new home. So it gives them the confidence to go out and find a new home while still living in their home. And one of them allows you to just rent back if you're just looking for that flush of equity. So those are two really great solutions. I think inventory-wise, education again again goes back, what can I afford in other parts of the county? Am I living in downtown Palm Beach, and would I like to move to the suburbs? And what are those average home prices? And even just educating on where I could go to help them, again, have the confidence to step outside and list their property.
Mr. Brown, from the Palm Beach County Office of Economic and Housing Development, you run that office for a long time now.
Yes, sir. The increase in inventory. There needs to be more supply. If people have more options, then they may consider, selling their home and looking for other things. A couple months ago, the Housing Leadership Council of Palm Beach County began a housing plan and a housing assessment, and we need your input. Everyone needs to provide some comments to that plan, because at the crux of that plan is whether or not the county commission would do a $200 million housing bond.
And that's up for debate this summer, but even then it takes 10 years, and people saying, what do I do in the meantime?
And so in the meantime, what the county commission has done was repurposed about $40 million of our housing dollars. And so you'll start to see requests for proposals go out, and developers that are looking to build single family and multifamily will have an opportunity to secure some of those dollars to provide and increase the supply.
Want to get to an audience question, sir? Your name and where you're from, and go ahead.
My name is Rolando Chang Barrero, and I'm trying to stay living in Palm Beach. I live a block away from my business. So my question is, based on commercial real estate sales, my prices for my rental is going to about triple now that if sold at the highest price. I'm not going to be able to afford a mom and pop Main Street store anymore, and neither are many of my neighbors. Well, every effort is being made to bring in business. Those are all commercial.
And your question?
My question is Main Street USA a thing of the past? Is my dream gone?
An excellent question that a lot of people are asking, and Professor, we'll put it to you first, because a lot of people are saying I'm being priced out altogether and that none of this really helps me right now. Where do I go from here? And if you don't have people willing to move here with bringing employer-based jobs because they can't afford to, then it's a vicious cycle. Can't afford to, people can't stay. What's the answer to that heartfelt question?
So you think that perhaps commercial's not linked to housing, but it is. Typically commercial follows housing. So I take your question to talk about the Main Street that we're used to, where there are the mom and pop shops and people are local. Will that be here? I don't know. I tend to think it will, primarily because commercial, while going up in price, there's a lot of space rearrangements for the commercial guys. So I think we're just beginning to see where some commercial might be converted into housing, other commercial might be repurposed into other forms of commercial. And I don't think it's going to go away. I just don't.
But how do we make sure we don't end in a state that's even more clearly delineated between the complete haves and more saying, I'm the have-nots, when not so long ago I was in the middle class? Mr. Brown?
So it's those like yourself that's looking to do something great with your business. Contact my office. We're not only housing, but we're economic development. While our big partner, the Business Development Board, deals with those that are looking to come to the county and more the larger organizations, Palm Beach County, we are the business resource for our businesses.
And Representative Overdorf, very briefly, how does this state, which is boasting about surpluses right now, how do we not become a have-not state even more than we already are? We see that in Palm Beach County and elsewhere.
Well, I think there's a couple things. Number one, we'll see a continued reduction in the business rent tax. With reform in insurance, I think you'll also see some of those costs go down. And additionally, with the Florida Enterprise Fund, it certainly gives an opportunity for business expansion as well as business updates as far as equipment or other things along those lines.
Another question from our audience, sir. Your name and your question.
Good evening. My name is Heber Santiago, and I work with numerous buyers and sellers on a daily basis. And what they ask me every day is the market going to crash? Are we going to see another 2007, 2008 again?
Ms. Pappas, we'll direct that starting with you, ma'am.
Well, I would say out of the we have a short memory here, and many times when we talk about a crash, we think only of 2007. But when you think back to the previous recessions, and I'm sure our doctor at the end will add to this, but when we think back to our previous recessions, we may have a slowdown. When we see interest rates rise, we don't see prices decrease, except for in 2007. So just because we're seeing interest rise does not mean we're going to see a total crash. It will mean there may be a leveling off. We're already seeing an uptick in inventory due to the interest rates increasing. A total crash is not something that anybody is seeing on the horizon, but I'll let our Doctor of Economics speak a little bit further to that.
Extremely briefly, we go to break, pick up on the other side.
Sure. So I'll be very quick. So, and again, supply demand. When we crashed back from 07 at the peak going down, we were at an extreme oversupply. Today, we're at an extreme undersupply. There's two outcomes around the country. Metros that are losing population will probably experience something like they saw 07 through 012, significant crash in prices. However, they'll solve their affordability issues because prices will go down. Other areas that are having this influx in population in the presence of all this shortage of inventory, it's unlikely that we will see an extreme crash in most parts of Florida. This is a very popular state. People are coming in. Unfortunately, we will probably see prolonged housing affordability problems.
And with that note, we will continue our discussion with our audience. We thank you for your very thoughtful and incisive questions, and we'll be back with more in a moment. Welcome back to our town hall, trying to find solutions, get answers to all of South Florida really feeling like it's being priced out of paradise. Robin, full name and your question.
My name is Robin Larrabee. I am a public school teacher. My salary barely covers the cost of living. I'm afraid of losing my home. I need help. I need guidance. What can I do financially to keep myself safe at this point?
Who would like to tackle that one first?
I'll start. The county has what's called a workforce housing program that is designed for individuals such as yourself, those that are critically necessary in the workforce here in Palm Beach County. Workforce housing program that not only provides rental opportunities, but home ownership opportunities. I often say the workforce housing program for home ownership is truly the only affordable housing program we have where the county controls or sets sales prices. And right now, the levels that are available are under $300,000 to purchase.
Continuing with our home buying in South Florida and navigating this crisis and this process, Mara from Delray Beach, you're a nonprofit owner as well.
Yes, I'm the founder of Living Hungry. We feed homeless students, homeless veterans, and homeless families.
And your question, ma'am?
My question is, I've come across a model of real estate selling known as the developer's agent. And these type of people specialize in buying off-market homes, very low, and selling to developers, which they're pulling in and recruiting from New York, New Jersey, just up north at top prices, so that this developer's agent reaps the big profits. But the cost is on us renters, and our homes, which are just units to them, are gone off the market. So what can be done to put the brakes on these predators?
Ms. Pappas, have you seen this happen?
That's a great question, and I think a lot it needs to go to who are they pulling in, how are they flipping properties, and are they doing this legally and ethically? When you work with a local realtor, they're held to a higher level of ethics and standards that are done. But I think what we really need to look at are what types of inventory are available for our local communities. And when you're talking about buying, there has been a lot of new programs that have been put into place to help our locals purchase homes at any price with down payment assistance and closing cost assistance. So really trying to understand the realtor's role in helping our buyers find affordable housing and be able to create that solution for anybody who is coming into our state.
Mr. Brown.
And if the home is in a homeowners association or a condo association, we challenge the homeowners associations and condo associations to preserve home ownership for those that are going to occupy those properties. Again, not sure what they can do, but they need to be having those conversations to create those opportunities for our local residents.
We have our next question. Sir, your name and where you live?
Hello, my name is Michael Watkins. I'm a local real estate broker, and for the past month, I've had one of my clients who is a school teacher. She's a single mom, and for a month, we haven't been able to find anything that she can afford. My question is, in the short term, what are we doing for the vital workers in our community, school teachers, nurses, who we need to keep in our community and make sure they have affordable housing? Are we going to let them leave our community? Do they need to move to find affordable housing.
Briefly, Representative Overdorf, I know there's a state program, I believe, that you and I've talked about. Talk about that briefly, where that may help, and then anybody else who'd like to pick up on it. Thank you for the
Absolutely.
question. Go ahead,
And thank you, first of all, for helping them and helping our Hometown Heroes, which is exactly the program that I'll be talking about. The Hometown Heroes is not only for our veterans, but also for firefighters, for teachers themselves specifically. This finds assurances and insurance, if you will, for that down payment and for that person to get into a home and a low-cost loan and or grant that would allow them to do that.
Another question on home buying from Betty. Betty, come join us here.
Hi, my name is Patty Wilhelm. I live in Western Lake Worth, and I believe Ms. Pappas would be able to address this. I have been recently, my condo was sold out from under me, and I'm now looking for another property, which has been quite difficult. And I'm wondering what pitfalls I should avoid now in this new market in terms of purchasing a condo, in terms of contracts, in terms of structure, anything like this. I've never purchased a condo, I've only rented.
Great question, and congratulations on taking the leap towards home ownership. That's very exciting. My first step is always work with a local realtor that understands the neighborhoods, understands the condos in which you work, and someone that is truly an expert. My second comment would be Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, after the fall of the tragedy in Surfside, have put in additional requirements in place should you be financing a property. They do have additional requirements in place. Additionally, you want to make sure to get a seller's disclosure before you move in. Ask for a seller's disclosure prior to doing so. That will give you a full information about if it's a condo association, a homeowners association, anything that has happened and occurred to that property. But ask for that prior to seeing a property. Many people will put that online.
So many stories of surviving this housing crisis. We're back with more in a moment.
Your WPTV News Channel 5 Town Hall returns after this.
And continuing our discussion on home buying here in South Florida, and virtually the fact that it's impossible for so many people because there's a lack of inventory, and when inventory comes on the market, it's swept up by cash buyers so quickly. Want to head to our audience right now. Ma'am, give us your name and your question.
My name's Latasha Arnold, and I'm a single mother and a local business owner. And one of the things I've been encountering is I make too much for resources. A lot of these programs go by the federal poverty line, which for a family of 3, it's $23,000. But if I make $30,000 to pay my rent, I don't qualify for child care assistance. So now I'm in a repetitive cycle of not having rent, not being able to provide for my own children, and not even qualifying for programs. I'm also told that I don't qualify for some of these homebuyer programs that you spoke about because I either make too much or too little. So who sets these parameters? How do we actually help families? How do we keep that flux happening? Because I'm a business owner. I want to stay here. I want to bring money into my community, and I want to help my community while providing a home for my children and not worrying about being evicted.
A very powerful question. Mr. Brown, you want to take this?
So great question. So I would say a couple things. One is there are programs, the levels are set either by the federal government, the state government, or local government. Our home, our federal funds that come from HUD are our home, CDBG, and things of that nature. State at the SHIP level, county workforce housing. And I make the distinction between those programs because each of those programs target a different income group and a different income category. So let's say we can't provide direct assistance to you. That doesn't mean we can't provide assistance to the developer that's building a home that you can rent and or purchase.
And a perfect segue right there with what Mr. Brown just said on affordable housing and workforce housing. Michael, I know you're addressing this right now.
We will have this lady stand for us. Give us your name and your question.
Hi, Leslie Mandel from Boynton Beach. A recent FIU study showed a 20,000 plus unit aggregate deficit of supply relative to demand over a 10-year period from 2010 to 2019. Would Palm Beach County support a housing bond issue to help build these missing units?
And indeed, that is going to be considered this summer. We're going to see where it goes. We'll come back to you, Mr. Brown. We'll talk to the politicians later. What's the likelihood?
And so the county commission is exploring it, and it is one of the tools that need to be brought forward. But would a housing bond solve it in and of itself? No. But is it an important tool that needs to be considered? Yes, it is. And so we're looking for everyone and every other options that we have to bring to the toolbox, to bring to the table so we can address this holistically.
More questions on affordable housing. Ma'am, your name and your question.
Sharon Bebout from Delray Beach, Florida. I have
communicated with the Delaware Beach Housing Authority. On May 2nd, they opened the portal. Within 10 minutes, they had 947 requests for Section 8 housing. How do we find housing for them? 35 people already have vouchers in their hands. Where are they going to go to find housing for them as well? They can't afford it.
That's a question that you continue to hear from our housing authorities as they petition the federal government for more vouchers. We understand that that's a critical point, and that's a point that we look to assist and we try to assist. And our housing authorities are on the forefront of it. They've been trying to secure not only your traditional vouchers, but even vouchers for veterans. And so it's an effort that continues to be pressed at the federal level.
If I can just add
Very briefly, and then we'll get you on the other side of the break.
Most certainly. You know, I want you all to understand, we hear what you're saying. And it's very easy for us to sit up here and to give you some answers and give you the strict answers, et cetera. But please keep doing what you're doing as far as advocating, because we need to hear that. We are working on solutions. I recognize they take time. I recognize that we don't all have that same patience level, but we do hear what you're saying, and we do try to get some programs going. It will take a little bit of time. The market will adjust at some point here, but we are hearing what you're saying, and I do not mean to be callous in any way as we move forward.
And I think that's an excellent point to take a break and then talk about how we can bring together some of those resources so when people leave here or you at home say, well, that was great, how do you help me right now? We'll talk about that on the other side of our break as our town hall continues. Back with our town hall, and I am here with Luther Bell. Your question, sir.
My question is, I want to know when my real estate tax so high. I built a house here 4 years ago, and each year my tax went up $1,000. And so I questioned the BA board about why my tax went up so high. And each one of them tell me that by my tax being so high, they told me I should sell the house and leave here. But I'm one of the original Floridians. I'm 79 years old. That's what I asked them where I'm going.
So your question is, what can be done about that? And this against somebody who's rooted here and saying, I don't want to leave here. So what are some possible answers? Thank you so much, Mr. Bell.
We were talking moments ago about the things that are provided for property taxes, the exemptions and things. And so I would say, if you have not filed for your homestead exemption, please check it. But also talk to the office, because there may be a lot of other exemptions that you are eligible for that would help you, because when you have that homestead exemption, there's a cap. You can't go up more than 3% annually. And so I'm wondering if you have the homestead exemption.
And we've also passed this year, and you'll see it on your ballot this fall, an additional homestead exemption for veterans, and so you'll be able to qualify for that as well, provided that passes the voting this year.
Yeah, you'll be able to vote on that in November of this year, and that would provide additional exemption for people like yourself.
When we talk about programs and we talk about things that we can take from this conversation, this dialogue, Mr. Brown, you mentioned a source and a resource coming up that could potentially help a lot of people in our community.
Yes, the county will be hosting an economic summit, the Board of County Commissioners, our county administrator, on June 2nd at the Convention Center. The two topics of discussion are housing, as we're talking here, and transportation. And in many ways, those two things go hand in hand. We're going to have a keynote that's coming from Jenny May. We're also going to have a housing panel that consists of city leaders, county leaders, and developers. This conversation is going to continue. Please come out and join us.
It seems to me today, with all the great questions, passionate ones, that people are saying, we get to talk to you after the broadcast is done. What commitment can we make in terms of a public-private partnership to create a better clearinghouse where people know that with all the great things you've said, where a lot of them said, I didn't know about it, that can happen? Who wants to raise their hand and say they'll take up the architecture of doing that? Anybody jump in?
Absolutely. Contact our offices. Contact your state representative. Doesn't necessarily have to be me, but one of our main roles is supposed to be constituent services. Obviously, we want to do that. We want to make sure that you gain the benefit of all of these state resources, and we're more than happy to do that. That's why we have been elected, is to serve you and also to make sure that we, in fact, are available to your questions and get those out to you.
And I would say your Board of Realtors surprisingly works hand in hand with both of everybody here on this panel behind the scenes. They advocate for programs like this every single day. Your Board of Realtors here is called Our World, but work with your Board of Realtors. They have these same resources, connections to everybody to be able to give you the resources that you need and get to that local resource.
And if we're not the source, we're the resource. Contact my office, 561-233-3600.
Dr. Johnson, and briefly, as we close up, your final thoughts, sir.
Sure. So I was really pleased to hear all of the resources. I'm at a 30,000-foot level, and I'm an economist, and I don't see that on the day-to-day interaction of things. We do know this about population spikes. Whenever you have a population spike, you always have a short-term economic disaster in terms of overall economics and housing. In the long run, that spike actually solves all those problems.
We thank you for your perspectives, the panel, and most of all, I think we all want to give applause to this great audience today asking the questions so many others are. To all of you. And as we close the broadcast, we promise our audience, and by extension all of you at home, that we will continue seeking answers, as we know our panel will as well. This is merely a beginning of a long debate and discussion to help all of us in South Florida.
WPTV is committed to this series, Priced Out of Paradise. We will tell these stories tonight, tomorrow, and well beyond. Thanks for joining us tonight. Continue our discussion on our digital platforms right now. Michael and I will continue this dialogue as we speak. Thanks for joining us.